Hi everyone. So this month I'm super excited to welcome Harry, who's the partnership leads at Relo. So welcome, Harry. We are going to have a kind of quick fire chat on the practical ways that consumer packaged goods brands can boost their customer retention. Should we jump straight into it, Harry? Should we do it?
Let's do it. Let's get into it.
Cool. So first of all, it'd be super helpful if you could just give us a bit of background into Relo and your role there.
Yeah, of course. So firstly, thank you for having me on. And also shout out to Nathan Lomax, I think, who it was who connected us first. Relo's a repeat revenue platform for D2C brands. We're the first platform to be exclusively built for the Klaviyo ecosystem. And we help merchants to help their customers reorder, to convert into a paid subscription, and then stay loyal by managing that subscription really easily. Like you mentioned, I'm the partnerships lead. So that means I handle the agency partnership side of the business. So helping agencies to help their merchants create more repeat revenue, basically, which can be a really key element of the retainer model that a lot of agencies are running around Klaviyo. And then also working on the tech partner side. So we have a kind of gold standard set of tech partners that we recommend in for basically CPG brands and to get the most out of their retention.
Yeah, perfect. Cool. No, I think what you guys are doing is really interesting and definitely kind of pushing the boat forward in terms of offering for CPG brands. So it's great to have you on the Pep Talk this month. And the one thing I was kind of keen to dive into is obviously, seeing rapid kind of innovation in the CPG space at the moment, and I guess the key to those sorts of businesses' growth is retention. Acquisition is always important, but also keeping those customers that you then acquire. What, from your perspective and Relo's perspective, what do you think is the sort of most important factors when it comes to customer retention?
Yeah, I think it's definitely getting more and more important. Obviously, everyone's heard that stat that's thrown around that it's like 5x more cost effective to retain a customer than acquire a new one. And that is just only going to get more and more extreme as in this kind of post iOS 14 world. There's a few elements to it that we looked into when we're doing all the R&D around Relo. Firstly, reminding customers to reorder at the right time is really important. We found when we spoke to like hundreds of merchants when we were researching how to build the product, and many of them were using arbitrary timeframes based on just like best practice. So it might be when someone's purchased something, you ask them, would they like to reorder after like 45 days? And that just stays static, regardless of whether your business completely evolves, it needs kind of manually updating. So making sure that's really dialed in is really important. Making it really easy for them to repurchase is essential. People want a very smooth process, and typically PDPs, so product pages, if you're driving traffic from, let's say, Klaviyo into product pages, very often that's not contextual around whether the customer's a repeat customer, a subscriber, a first-time customer. So you're kind of driving people through first-time customer journeys again, which can be often a real drag on retention. The content in just email flows, just making sure that's diverse as possible. So I think it's important to note that like not all emails should be transactional. Like you shouldn't always just be reminding people to buy things. There's a whole load of strategy, like I know you guys focus on a lot of Pep, just around like education pieces and just making sure people feel like they're part of a journey. Because it's like for these kind of brands, it's very emotional a lot of the time. People want to be part of something. Fostering that as much as possible will help retention for sure. Supplementing campaigns with like particular pushes at particular moments in the journey. So if someone is a loyal customer, send them a birthday message. If it is around Christmas, send tiered discounting to various different cohorts of your customers as well. So there's a lot that can be done, but I think the kind of pure transactional retention piece of just trying to get people buying again can work very, very closely alongside the more content-led stuff as well.
Yeah, I really like your first point around it's because we see it's a mistake a lot of clients make in terms of just having that sort of set 30-day, 40-day, whatever it is, reminder, and just it's sort of a set it and forget it type thing, whereas actually getting that timing right is critical, particularly potentially with kind of CPG brands where customers can potentially go and buy that product in a supermarket or in their local shop, and so you need to get in there before they run out and before that happens. And so I think timing, as you say, is a really important factor in increasing those retention rates.
Yeah, definitely. And like, just I guess from a customer perspective, if that merchant sends you something saying, hey, it looks like it might be time for you to reorder, and they're actually right, that's like an amazing customer experience generally, because it's useful to you, rather than it just being a reminder out of nowhere and you think, okay, I need to do that next week, or I need to do that in a couple of weeks time. If that relevance can make a lot of kind of goodwill between you and the brand as well.
Yeah, interesting. Cool. And from a kind of tech stack perspective, what do you see as the gold standard to help CPG brands kind of achieve better customer retention?
This is something we've been really, really working on recently, because we speak with, just through our kind of commercial team, we speak with hundreds of brands, and we're always looking at kind of where we would perhaps fit into that, and you start seeing the same names come up again and again. And I think there's some which really stand out. Gorgeous, firstly, on the customer services side, they're now the #1 ranked help desk. They've surpassed Zendesk, and they also have an amazing Klaviyo integration, which can build some really interesting segments and dynamic segments that you can then use for your email campaigns to help fuel that as well. Another platform with an amazing Klaviyo integration, and you'll notice all of my recommendations are, because we're so closely in that ecosystem as well, is reviews.io. When it comes to user-generated content, those guys are our kind of go-to recommendation there. For loyalty can be an amazing tool to just help with retention generally. When people feel that they're kind of gaining momentum and they're upgrading through various different tiers, that can be just an amazing way to retain customers. So we usually recommend Loyalty Lion there. Now on the subscription side, there's been this kind of birth of a lot of challenger subscription brands popping up all over the place. But I would say still Recharge is the gold standard. They're the go-to. And in terms of the breadth of product and the functionality and just how it plugs into the CPG ecosystem generally, they would be definitely the #1 recommendation there. And although it sits a little earlier in the journey, optimizing cost for acquiring customers is super important. And the best way to achieve that is through a platform like Triple Whale, I think, and getting something really good to understand your attribution. So if you're piling X number of pounds into acquiring new customers, you really need to know exactly where that growth is coming from. And a lot of the time, a lot of platforms will be claiming all sorts of data, and there'll be a lot of overlap. So using a platform like Triple Whale, we tend to suggest just as a kind of central source of truth. And then, finally, a little less on the kind of marketing tech side, but optimizing fulfillment is like essential as well. And especially for the type of brands that we specialize in at Relo, so these CPG brands, if they're internationalizing, a lot of the time, there can be a lot of complexities around like fulfillment costs and various different things that just eat into margins, or things that are passed on to customers. So we tend to recommend in ShipBob there as the best 3PL out there, really. And once again, works incredibly well with Klaviyo as well. So all of these things can kind of tie in through the Klaviyo environment. Yeah,
interesting. There's some really great recommendations there, particularly around, we work a lot with Loyalty Lion, reviews.io. Completely agree with what you're saying. Cool. And then at the beginning of the call, you mentioned a little bit about what Relo does, but would love for you to go into a bit more detail in terms of how, or the role Relo plays in terms of helping brands create that long-term customer retention with customers.
Yeah, definitely. So like, as I mentioned, we interviewed like hundreds of merchants to understand a lot of the key problems that they were facing in terms of building relationships with customers and hence from there retaining them. We found basically that there was 3 key areas that they were really struggling with. And that was like getting customers onto repeat orders, getting repeat order customers onto subscriptions, onto like paid recharge subscriptions, and then making sure they don't cancel those subscriptions. And typically we found that the ways that they were trying to solve that was they had like loads of insights, but typically those insights were siloed. in an external analytics platform. So you have all sorts of amazing bells and whistles and graphs and beautiful stuff, but none of it's making it into the ESP. So yeah, within Klaviyo, just like we were saying before, it's usually like setting up static timeframes just based on that qualitative understanding of your audience, and then driving traffic to these product pages that don't really convert. So with Relo, we wanted to like solve those three things. And our solution is that when you connect to Relo, we analyze all the historic Shopify data, and we look on a customer and SKU level to make really accurate predictions about when people are going to reorder, or whether they are perhaps at the right moment to suggest a subscription to. Now, with that really strong understanding of the customer, we can then sync directly into Klaviyo through our native integration, which means that you can then provide messages to your customers as a much more relevant time frame. And from there, there's no point in doing all that amazing work if the like conversion journey is really poor. So we designed what we call a magic cart. So this is a kind of floating cart which pops open over the top of when people click the call to action in email or SMS, and it basically is preloaded with everything we could possibly pull to make that experience as personalized as possible, to basically remove all of the friction points around the journey so that they can check out with just a couple of clicks. And yeah, what we find is by like increasing the relevance, piping that straight into Klaviyo, and then making sure the conversion's as smooth as possible, it means that people are more willing to be longer term customers, because that experience is nice. And especially if they're a subscriber as well, being able to just make all those changes to their subscription through something without having to log into various different things or have the kind of headache of wanting to skip, pause, delay. So we find that usually helps on a long-term basis.
Yeah, cool. I think I think one of the most interesting parts is the personalization piece, and also, as you say, making it a really seamless experience in terms of the checkout, rather than it being super clunky with lots of needing to sort of click in various places and sign in and all that boring stuff, which definitely doesn't help people with the checkout process. So yeah, cool. Great, thank you so much, Harry. Is there anything else you wanted to mention or add? If not, we'll wrap it up.
No,
cool.
Nothing else. No, but thank you very much, Georgie.
Where can people find out more about Relo if they would like to?
So we are on reloapp.co.
Cool.
Is our website, so you can come check us out, and find me on LinkedIn, drop me a message, especially in the whether you're a merchant or whether you are a tech partner or an agency partner, just like you guys at Pepped. More than happy to have a chat about everything.
Amazing. Cool. Thanks, Harry.
Awesome. Thanks, Georgie.